voters are legitimately and rightfully concerned about President Joe Biden's age, and he has announced that he plans to run for re-election. Now, rather than acknowledge the concerns of the American people, Joe Scarborough and the rest of Morning Joe decided to defend Biden by comparing him to Ronald Reagan? All right, so MSNBC was rushing to Biden's defense because Ted Cruz, of all people, claimed that Biden wasn't mentally capable enough to negotiate on the manufactured debt ceiling crisis. And I say manufactured because they're all going to raise the debt ceiling, okay? They're not gonna crash the world economy. Let's just stop pretending like there's a real debate here. But with that said, let's watch how this conversation went down.
In 2011, when Republicans in the House stood strong on the debt ceiling, again, because Democrats had had majority of the Congress for 2 years, had passed trillions in irresponsible spending, and Republicans stood strong and said, we will not raise the debt ceiling without serious fiscal reform. What happened? Then Vice President Joe Biden came and negotiated a deal called the Budget Control Act. Vice President Biden sat down with House Republicans and reached a meaningful compromise. President Joe Biden needs to do the same thing, and I'll say, sadly, the reason he hasn't so far, I believe, is because his mental faculties are too diminished right now.
What about what's the excuse for you? Like, what happened to your mental faculties? Okay, anyway, God, why did we start with Ted Cruz? Because now I want to defend Biden.
No, I know.
But I'm not going to, because his age is a problem. It's just that introducing that point in the context of the debt ceiling issue is insane.
Yeah, the thing about Republicans is that they, even when they're making a point that's legitimate, they find a way to make it illegitimate.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So first of all, raising the debt ceiling is 100%. Well, look, no. Let me actually amend that. I was going to say 100% the Republicans' fault because they're completely lying about it, right? During Trump, they raised the debt ceiling every time without ever bringing it up as an issue, ever threatening it. They're 100% liars. Only do it during the Democrats. But the reason I walked back that it's 100% their fault is because Biden is actually 50% responsible because he humors them. Because you know why? Both when he was vice president and president, he wants to do the same spending cuts that they do. So, but he doesn't want to get blamed for it. So he goes, oh, they're twisting my arm. There's nothing I can do. I guess we're gonna have to cut for the average man and give it to all our corporate donors. Golly gee, there's nothing I could do. So it's all a game. He knows that they're not gonna crash the world economy. All he has to do is go, no, I'm gonna do the same exact thing that you guys did with Trump. We're not gonna negotiate it and we're done with it. But Biden doesn't do that because he's in on it. This is good cop, bad cop. The only way you could ruin both the fact that Biden is also responsible and the fact that Biden has these issues with his age is by tying the two together for no reason.
100%, I couldn't agree more. Okay, so that is what sparked the conversation you're about to hear on Morning Joe. So let's go to the first clip.
He has such a point.
Yes.
His mental faculties are so diminished that he passed signed more bipartisan legislation.
Didn't even know he was doing it
last year than any president since LBJ. My God, if he were as cogent as he had been in 2011,
think of what he could have done.
He could have been like you could have gone back to FDR.
What else he did without apparently realizing what he was doing? He held NATO together to fight Russian aggression in Ukraine and. Just amazing.
And my God, I know he only increased the 800-mile border NATO with Russia.
Exactly, but I guess he thought he was.
I hate it when that happens.
You know, it reminds me of Ronald Reagan when he was speaking at Harvard, a Eureka College grad, and he's sitting there talking to the grads, and he's making fun of his education. At the end, he goes, sometimes I just sit here with a presidential seal in front of him, and I wonder what I could have been with a good education.
I do remember many moments featuring Joe Biden. We can get to a discussion about all the things that were referenced there, but I want to reference other things that they're intentionally leaving out of the equation, like this.
Secretary of Health and Education Service, I nominated Javier Baccaria. Javier Bashir, excuse me. We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Wealthy kids, black kids, Asian kids. No, I really mean it, but think how we think about it. Luxury homes and other ill-begotten gains of Putin's kleptocracy. Kleptocracy and the guys who are the kleptocracies. Just today, we've got news that Rashid Sunak is now the prime minister. You're trying your best, but it never feels like enough.
Thank you. At the end of such a momentous event, the word thank you seems kind of inadequate.
What are we doing here, guys? He's 80 years old.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
So look, that clip was so representative of Washington. They genuinely think that Biden killed it. They're like, oh my God, look at all these bipartisan bills. We got like $70 billion to the semiconductor industry. Those corporate donors are thrilled. We got so many hundreds of millions of dollars in the infrastructure bill to private companies that are gonna build that infrastructure and to the unions who also paid us off. We got them all that money. Now, none of this is really going to the average American. The only thing that did go to the average American that really was great and that actually did have Biden's approval numbers above 50%, the only time they were above 50% in this whole time was the COVID relief bill, which went directly to the American workers, right? But remember, we made that one temporary. The rest are permanent, but that one's temporary. So all those things already ran out and people are super pissed that they ran out.
The child tax credit is a perfect example of that.
But the corporate donors, they got everything they wanted. They think Biden is not mentally competent when he's still great at corruption. And all of us are so happy. And they thought they were doing a comedy routine there. Did you see that? They're like, oh yeah, and then he expanded the NATO border 800 miles. And everybody laughs and stuff. By the way, that's a mixed bag on extending the NATO border 800 miles with Russia. But anyways, but the second part that was telling was that they are all so positive about Reagan.
Yeah.
Like meaning in a like effusive praise, right? And Biden. But wait a minute, Reagan and Biden are in different parties.
Should be a red flag, by the way.
Theoretically believe different things, but do they? And of course the answer is no, they don't believe in different things. They both believe in serving corporate donors and they're both establishments. Guys, it's the uniparty. So Reagan was the Republican bad cop and Biden is the Democratic good cop, but they're on the same team and they all lead to the same exact results. It's passing giant bills that help only corporate interests. And what did Reagan do? He cut taxes massively for the wealthy. What did Biden do? He made George W. Bush's tax cuts for the wealthy permanent when he negotiated that deal when he was the vice president for Obama. They all do the same thing. And that is why then you have propaganda, which is in this case, a former Republican, Joe Scarborough, on the theoretically left-wing channel, MSNBC. And all of that panel with theoretical, left-wingers and right-wingers, and they all agree on every issue.
Isn't that that's so surprising and shocking?
Yeah, I thought we were having debates on cable news, etc. No, they're all for the uniparty.
By the way, comparing Biden to Reagan is maybe not the best idea. So let's get into the history of that, because that's important. So while campaigning in 1980, Ronald Reagan tried to put to rest questions about his age by pledging that he would resign if the White House physician ever detected signs of mental deterioration. But in the wake of the Iran-Contra deal, Reagan's aides considered using the 25th Amendment to remove him from office. Reagan's staff told stories about how inattentive and inept the president was. James Cannon, an aide to Reagan's chief of staff, recalled two journalists, Jane Mayer and Doyle McManus, in Landslide, the unmaking of the president. So, which by the way, I haven't read that, now I want to. Reagan was lazy, he wasn't interested in the job. They said he wouldn't read the papers they gave him, even short position papers and documents. They said he wouldn't come over to work. All he wanted to do was watch movies and television at the residence, and that sounds a lot like Donald Trump, actually.
100%. I was thinking the same thing. So look, Reagan at the time, and I was around back then, was considered like borderline Alzheimer's or already in Alzheimer's when he was in office, right? And people used to make fun of him for that, etc. Now, he was beloved by a lot of the nation, okay? But everyone knew that it was a huge issue for him. So comparing Biden to Reagan is not the win you think it is.
No, it's not.
Okay, that was a guy who was kind of legendary for losing it while in office. But the reason why they look back fondly on him, one, uniparty, but two, because things only got worse for the Republicans after that. And people thought Reagan was not that bright, right? And you see all those that coverage of him at the time. But then you got George W. Bush, and he was even less bright than Reagan. And then you got Trump, and he was even less bright than George W. Bush. So it's like a photocopy of a photocopy, and it's getting degraded every time. Now we have Trump. By the end, you know how you saw this quote about, oh, you couldn't get Reagan to pay attention, etc. Trump, they had to, in his briefings, they had to put pictures in for him to focus, and they had to mention his name many times so it would grab his attention. Because if it didn't have his name over and over again, he'd get bored and start, oh yeah, whatever. And he wanted to go back to watching cable news.
Baby.
These are the children and honestly, like mentally challenged folks that both sides are putting out.
I know.
And then the myth makers,
yes,
the propagandists, that is mainstream media, corporate media, because it includes right-wing media as well. Fox News, MSNBC work hand in glove. Good cop, bad cop there too. Remember guys, Reagan is awesome, Biden is awesome, corporate giveaways are awesome, the establishment is awesome. Let's fight on nonsense things that don't actually affect any of you guys, like social issues, etc. But meanwhile, economically, we all agree you should be robbed. And by the way, coming all the way back around to Ted Cruz, it's not like he disagrees with any of that. He's just involved in the theater of this debt ceiling stuff. And at the end, what are they gonna do? They're gonna cut spending that would go to you, the average American. And then Morning Joe is gonna tell you how great Biden was because he passed all the bills that help corporations.
And remember, what matters the most is how the American electorate feels about Joe Biden. If you genuinely want to ensure that Donald Trump doesn't get reelected, you should take these types of stats and polls seriously, because 70% of Americans, including 51% of Democrats, believe Biden should not run for a second term. Half of those who say Biden shouldn't run cite his age as a major reason why. But we've got corporate media that will manufacture consent and prop up Biden anyway. And that's exactly what Morning Joe was doing there.
And those clips that we showed you, they're never gonna show them on cable news. No. They're not gonna show them on MSNBC and CNN. Instead, they're gonna tell you, he negotiated all the best deals, the most mentally sharp guy in the world. Nothing but liars on there.
Yep.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat, emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.